Hello, happy September, everyone. Thank you for joining or watching the fortnightly backdrop design call in which we talk about all things design in the backdrop CMS project. Let's see, it's only Wes and I so far today, so we'll probably just be kicking back and forth about the basis theme, which is the new core theme that we're working on for backdrop CMS. But we have a queue of things to go through, so we'll go through the agenda as normal and then start talking about our work that we're doing on the new core theme. So design tasks that we've got going on right now, areas that need design or need feedback on design. First of all, we have backdropcms.org, the flagship website, in which we've been building out a lot of new features and sections of the site, some of which have they've already been built, but they haven't actually really truly been designed. We've done some work deriving things like the layouts page from the modules page and so forth. So some areas that we need some design help includes, or design review help, I should say, is things like if you visit backdropcms.org and then click on the layouts section and then finding layouts and actually looking at a layout asset page. Those pages right now basically just look the same as our modules pages, but there's probably some specific functionality that could be pulled out and specialized on those particular layout pages. Things like the layout template and how many columns it has, and other categories that are specific to layouts. Hey, greetings, Jen.
Hi.
And Darren, welcome. So we're just going over backdropcms.org. We basically have just gotten started. So I just finished talking about layout, project, and listing pages. Do you want me to keep going on things like forum and documentation? Okay. So other areas that we need some design help that are a little bit ambiguous right now, forum. This is super ambiguous because we haven't actually decided how we're going to build this one out yet. So designs are still going to be necessary at some point, but the actual implementation is kind of up in the air at this point. So if you're passionate about forum design and have some great ideas about how forums could look, designs might not be a bad place to start, but it will probably actually guide the implementation, which could be great. Documentation, Jen, actually you should talk about the documentation section because I know you've been collaborating on building out that section.
Sure, sorry, I'm just pulling up the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have, and I would really like to talk to Doc Wellman about this because he has like the master plan on documentation. But what we have right now is a really detailed set of fantastic documentation about pretty much every feature in Backdrop Core, which is great, but I think that it's going to be super off-putting to new people who just need to like jump in and get started. Like it's not a handbook like you could read front cover to back cover. It's really like a super detailed, like I'm stuck on this one crazy variable and I don't know where to configure it kind of like user's manual. And I would love to break it up into like a getting started guide, like a quick start, like here are some, what you need to know about content types and users type posts, and then having like a more detailed deep dive that's either buried deeper in or like a different set of documentation. And I looked at, he's got like a Google Doc that has the whole thing outlined. It looks like that's kind of how he's got it divided already, but I can't tell from the content that's created if it's just the super detailed stuff and he hasn't started on the high level overview. And so I don't really know how to organize what's there in a way that's meaningful to people. And this is where we could maybe use some help from designers too, to be like, oh, well, let's look at what WordPress has done and see if there's a way that we can do better than that. WordPress just has like a box on their homepage that's got like 8 links in it. But some way that we could kind of guide people, like, here's what you need to know to get started, and then here's how to find help when you get stuck, which is, I think, what the documentation that we have right now is. And I don't really know how to organize that in any way that makes sense. Right now we're using the book module, and we've got like an outline down the right-hand side, kind of like Drupal.org style. And I think it only ever shows one level of links rather than showing the entire tree. But then there is like, are we hiding things from people that may need to find it, or is it good to only show? I don't know. It's so if we could get somebody's perspective on that, like from a design sense, like it's got to look good, but also from a usability sense, like we've got to make sure that we're delivering the things we want to deliver to people without scaring them away. Because I think we have this fantastic set of curated documentation. We want people to use it. So trying to figure out how to make kind of heads or tails of that would be good.
Cool. I just posted into the outline or into the agenda because I actually had a little bit of trouble finding because it's not in the navigation yet. So we've got a lot of content in the user guide, and you can get to it at backdropcms.org/user-guide for anyone.
So I think that is the like top level page of the book.
Right.
And then like the first page is the quick start guide, but I don't know that this is like, it's like a one-page thing. I don't know if this is all of the quick start guide or if this is supposed to be like the top level page to the quick start guide. I don't know. I feel like Doc Wilmot has a plan. And some of the stuff that's in the quick start guide isn't in the like detailed user guide.
Yeah.
And so I don't know exactly how it's like. I don't know if he's not done yet or how it's supposed to be organized. But we should definitely figure out if this is like if dividing it into smaller pages is better, leaving it in larger pages is better. I don't know.
Yeah.
It might be good just to have the quick start guide be in one page, and that might be what he was thinking. It's just like, here's one page, read it, and you're done.
Yeah. Yeah, and something like this landing page, you know, the book module by default doesn't give you hardly anything, and whenever you hit one of these pages that is nothing but a collection of child pages, it does this terrible thing where it's just like you have to make up some funny sentence and just say, this is the page that holds the other pages, you know? And so, yeah, coming up with a solution to something like that seems like, I mean, that's slightly implementation, but I mean, this is also kind of a design challenge. Yeah, you're right that we kind of need to let Doc Wilmot finish the way that he's structuring this, and then
I think he might have like
kind of guide the design. I think
he might have a complete set in his Google Docs because he started drafting all these in Google Docs before we put it into backdropcms.org, and I think it just might not be organized on the website in the same way that's organized in the Google Doc. And so I originally started being like, I'm going to fix the website, and then I was like, wait a minute, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm like, I'm going to consult the Google Doc, and I'm like, wait a minute, I have no idea if this is final. So I'm kind of stuck in that, like, I don't want to break anything. Like, he obviously has a plan, I don't know what it is. So I don't know if we should, maybe I should just send him an email or put a post on the issue queue that asks with the status of things and see how close we are, because this content is so good. I want to put it on the website. I want people to be able to use it. Even if it's not done, it is so good. It's enough to show people that we are going to have a fantastic set of documentation resources, even if they're not there now. But I don't want to do it in a way that isn't how he envisioned it. So we need to just figure out how to get it done.
Yeah,
mostly how to get it started.
I mean, actually, it doesn't look great, and that's why we're talking about it. But the content is great.
The content is fantastic.
Okay.
All right. That was it for the documentation. It's really just like, how do we make it pretty and how do we make it usable? But the content is fantastic. Homepage. So also coming out of the Drupal Camp LA that we went to last week, the big takeaway, I had this fantastic conversation with like 5 people who were in our backdrop talk, and the big takeaway was that we aren't doing a very good job of marketing. Imagine that. And particularly in relation to our website. Like, if you have never heard of Drupal, you don't understand why you should use Backdrop. And I think that we aren't listing any of the selling points for Drupal as selling points for Backdrop. We're only listing the things that are different, which I think was important initially because the only people who had ever heard of us were the people who wanted to know what was different. But now there are people who are like, there's nothing compelling about this. Like, I want to know that my content editors have a WYSIWYG editor, whatever it is. I don't know what people they want to know, obviously. But just trying to put more of that stuff on the homepage would be good. Having more information that doesn't have any comparisons to Drupal 7 too. Like, we had a couple of these bullet points on the homepage that were like faster than Drupal 7, right? But it's like, if you don't know what that means, there's no context there. And so I tried to change the words a little bit in the items that were there to take out the comparisons to Drupal. And I added a couple new, like, infinitely customizable and add more functionality. But I think it would be good to kind of look at like, what are the selling points for Drupal, and make sure we're hitting on all of those as well. And then people definitely harped on, we need to get a showcase section up, and it shouldn't just be like pretty pictures of websites people built in Backdrop. It needs to actually be like how this company was able to achieve their goals using Backdrop, or how this company was able to stay within their budget using Backdrop, and actually like tell that story rather than just being like, look, it's a pretty website, which is what we did in our one blog post. So we have a showcase section underway. We need to get it done. And we need to make sure that the content around the showcases is valuable to the kinds of people who are going to be looking for it. And we need to get that featured on our homepage. So I think as soon as we have the showcase section up, that should go in place of the We Support Backdrop CMS logos that are currently on our homepage now. And we can move those to the support section where we, I don't even know if we need them. We could put them on the thank you page or something. We'll figure out a home for them. But now that we have companies and organizations on our support section, we might not just need the list of logos anymore. So yeah, trying to figure out how to properly market us is good. I also spent a lot of time talking to Jordan about thinking about who our audience for the website is and making sure that they all have pathways to achieve their goals. So if I am somebody who just heard about Backdrop at a conference, but I don't really know very much about it, and I land on the website, what do I want to know, and do I have an easy way to get there? And I think initially we're like, oh, just read the handbook cover to cover, and then you'll know everything you need to know, was kind of a very one-sided approach to that. I think there are a lot more people who aren't going to be interested in reading the handbook, and we need to make sure that they have the tools that they want to figure out if Backdrop's right for them too. So things like the showcase and video tutorials and I don't know, just other pathways to success, like getting more people to sign up for our newsletter and then actually sending the newsletter would be good. So there's just a whole bunch of stuff in terms of marketing and content strategy that as developers we're not very good at, that we should probably have someone thinking about for the website. So if we are going to put new things on the homepage, those need to be designed. So probably relevant for this group. There's a whole bunch of stuff on our website that we kind of threw up without a thought to design. The blog news section, the event listing, the service provider listing, and these could probably use a review. So if somebody wants to just kind of take a look at those pages and say, like, yes, this is in line with our brand guidelines because it's the same theme, we're using the same theme, but there are little places where those pages could be completely improved that we didn't put any thought into. It would be great to have someone just kind of look at that with a critical eye and be like, oh, you know, this is the wrong color gray, or you know, whatever it is that we're missing, and make sure that everything still looks nice. I'm just looking at what you're adding in here. Okay. I think that's it for backdropcms.org. Should we move on to marketing-related resources? since we just talked about that too. Okay, so Wes did a great design for business cards. So anyone on the PMC or not on the PMC, if they want to create business cards that just have your personal information on one side and a bunch of information about Backdrop on the other, whether it's right and left or front, back, however you want to do it. We've got some great designs going for that in issue number 228. I haven't looked at that issue recently, but I think where we left it off is that they look fantastic. I'm not sure we have the raw files. Are they in the Dropbox, Wes? I don't remember. No. So if anyone wants to make any iterations on them, we can't. It would be great. I know, Wes, I'd love to have you stay focused on front-end stuff for Backdrop 1.5, but if you want to just throw those designs up there, then anyone else can kind of run with that or have them printed. I would also love to get some printed cards for Bad Camp. I'm not sure how many people are going to be here for that, but I think having, if we wanted to order a whole bunch at once, that might be a good way to disseminate them to different people without having to pay for different shipping. So I think it'll be good. Other things we're working on, if anyone wants to create a sticker design, a couple people have mentioned that the dragon, when you stick it over the Apple on the back of your Apple computer, is butt lights up. Its butt lights up, and maybe that's not the right thing we want to convey about our dragon. So if somebody wanted to work on a design that was appropriate for Apple computers, then we could do something fun with Apple, like a dragon eating the apple or swatting the apple or sleeping around the apple or whatever. That could be fun. Also, there's been a couple people that say they really like the way the dragon fits in the apple now, so totally open for interpretation. If anyone wants to work on that, we could, but no super rush there. Also, we had this long-standing issue, number 121, to create background images for Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus and YouTube and everywhere else that Backdrop has a presence online. And we finally got some awesome designs going for that. I know we've had a first round of review, and the designs as they were originally created have been posted to the issue queue, all the design files. So if anyone wants to take a stab at improving those, there's some feedback there about changing the shadow on the dragon, or changing the colors in the logo, or changing the shape in the background. There's a whole bunch of suggestions on things we could iterate on if people wanted to. I still think what we have now is like 1,000 times better than what we had before, which was nothing, so it's a huge step in the right direction. And if someone wants to pick it up, that's also, I think, a good kind of first fun task for someone. Low risk, high reward. If you want to play with design stuff for Backdrop, that's a good piece of low-hanging fruit. So thanks so much for the work that's already been done and for the good feedback, and I can't wait to see where it goes from here. All right, so Nate, do you want to talk about Backdrop the product, since you've been doing a ton of review of front-end theme lately?
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Basis. Yay! So we have a core issue at 1361 that is the primary issue for putting the front-end theme in core, and I think I posted, yeah, okay, I and others have posted to that core issue that basically work is progressing, but that's not actually where most of the work is happening, because there's a whole bunch of tiny little things rather than having a 300 long comment thread in that one issue. We've been doing almost all of the work in the separate issue queue for Basis, which has been moved into Contrib. Thanks, Wes, for doing that. I need to put more links here in the agenda. So there's been a lot of activity actually in the Basis queue. Graham's been in there, Jeff's been in there, I've been in there. Looks like Gregory's been in there too. And so some things have been filing pull requests for your work, Wes. And other things I don't really quite know where or how to handle some things, so I've just been filing issues and kind of saying, eh. One general statement about the approach here is that I know, like, we've been a little ambitious around some of the things that we'd wanted to do, like like you had posted some to-dos in the code that was like, to do, remove this thing entirely from core if possible. And I can't remember what those things were. That was like, things like the header menu from the header block. Like you'd been hoping that we could just remove that functionality so that we wouldn't have to accommodate for it.
Not the functionality, the default config.
Oh.
That's what I want to do on install. Yeah. We can go into that if you want, but
yeah, actually, that sounds good.
So basically, I think the way most sites lay out their header, the user menu is top right and the logo is top left. But with the markup the way it is with that block and the default menu being the user menu, that's not really possible because the main menu is generally is another block. So you have these two things that are coupled and the main menu, and you kind of want to put the main menu in the middle of these two things. Mm-hmm. So either in the default config, I would switch it, which I kind of think this is a good idea. I was chatting with Eaton about semantics of the site name and site logo, and we thought that if the site name is in a nav element that wraps the menu, having it be an H1 would be super semantic and awesome, which sounds really cool. So that kind of is a good argument for changing the default config to have the main menu in the header block and then have the user menu in the header by default, but instead of like the main menu. Does that make sense?
Instead of the main menu, so the main menu would be part of the header block. Are you saying that we would flip them so the main menu would become
flip them.
Would become the one that is in the header block? Yeah.
Yep. And then the user menu is its own thing.
Yeah, that actually was the original intention with that header block containing a menu in the first place, was that there are a lot of situations where the themer would want to control the positioning of the menu in relationship to the other items in the header, which is why that option exists in the first place. But it happens that the structure of Bartik, so it's funny, like this is the opposite of Bartik's problem, which is why in Bartik the header menu ended up being the nav or the user menu because that's where the markup kind of demanded it. And so it's funny. So in Bartik, the menu that was relative to the logo was the user menu, but in Basis, the menu that is relative is now the main menu. So yeah, it's. I feel like we've set a bad precedent by doing what we did to Bartik, but we might be kind of stuck with it.
For new installs?
Yeah, because if for new installs, if you switch your theme, it's like how
even from a markup perspective, it doesn't make any sense to me to have the site name and the user menu in the same thing. Like, aesthetic aside, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
It sounds like I'm having a hard time picturing how Bartik is laid out that makes sense. But that's my
I think it's because just simply in Bartik, the primary menu is always below both of these other items. Like
there are a lot of use cases for having the user menu be at the extreme top right of the site, and sometimes it's like inside the header, sometimes it's above the header. But being in the header means it's going to be in the same place as the site logo and site name, or site name.
Well, I just mean having the markup for the site name and the menu be right next to each other makes a ton of sense to me, semantically, design-wise. Having the user menu next to each other, design-wise, I don't know, but like I would think the main menu be closer but in the markup, it doesn't. It just doesn't make sense to me. Because that's like it's the primary focus of the header is the site menu, or it's like one of the most
Well, if
important
it's
things.
in the header, but a lot of times it's not. It's right below. Like, so in Bartik, it's right below. I know a lot of sites that I do can't use the menu that's in the header because it's a drop-down menu or something, and the menu that's printed in the header can't print more than one level of links. And so it's almost always a block that's added. And so you have to add it somewhere near the header.
Yeah.
But you don't usually put it in the header. And sometimes it depends on what you're doing with your site. But usually it's like header, and then you stick the menu right underneath it. And I don't think like, I mean, I don't know semantically how it matters, like how the markup is organized, but it still seems like we've got other regions that aren't the header that are around there. I don't know if that matters, if like the header tag needs to be surrounding the menu or not, but
It should, I would think, but
so I think in Backdrop the header tag is only in the header block, isn't it?
yeah. Or is it? No, I thought it was on the region. Is it not?
I mean, it might be on the layout.
Yeah, it's on the region, not on. Yeah, it's in the layout. Yeah.
So my original thought before I got all excited about markup with Eaton was to just not have anything in no default menu in the header block, and just have logo, main menu, user menu, 3 blocks, and not open this can of worms. Because I mean that is really flexible from like a. You need to shuffle those things around. Like even with like Flexbox, you could make source order matter a lot less, and just kind of play the shell game with your 3 blocks.
Yeah,
I think that actually sounds good too, because I think it would be good to have an example of doing that in core, like where you just use the menu block for both menus.
Yeah, that's actually something that has been perplexing to me is how. I mean, the user gets to decide the order of these blocks and whether or not they show up at all. And in the admin interface and everywhere else besides the header, blocks are positioned linearly, vertically, one after the next, right? And that happens in every region currently. Even right now in Bartik, it is linear vertically as well, which is why like the logo and user menu are side by side, but they're all in one block. And then directly below it is the main menu. And how we would deal with a user putting in different blocks into the header and having that still make sense is like when I was doing the Bartik stuff is like the biggest challenge of this entire header area.
You mean more than one block in the header in the region, or
changing what they are or whatever.
Yeah.
Like Wes had the example of like, let's just say we had the header block that doesn't have a header menu, and then you throw in the user nav and the main menu. Okay, so now you have 3 blocks up at the top. How do you make it so that those are actually positioned in a way that like matches this design?
Well, we have the ability to add class in the UI. If that class was added in the admin UI too, then it would be able to set like width and position. So you could put one in there, and then you could say, add 4 columns or whatever, and then the block would only be 4 columns wide. So if the admin UI were to actually reflect the front-end UI, that's what I usually do with most of my panel sites. Then as soon as you add the class, then it fits where you expect it to fit. So if you had 3 in a row in a region, and each of them had like a 4-column class, then they would all sit side by side in that region.
Yeah, it gets a little hairy just because menus, how much space a menu takes up gets really sensitive with like word length, and you don't know how many items there are.
Oh, you mean like you wouldn't use a Bootstrap class on a menu block?
I mean, at some point there needs to be some sort of assumption around like how long a menu is going to be, or like how it wraps, but like it's awkward. It's all very awkward.
Yeah, I mean, I think like we have the other issue about how to make menus responsive too. And I think what admin menu does is smart, where if there's room, it'll
Yeah.
print it, and if there's not room, it just flips to mobile. And that
Yep.
would mean that no user would need to know how wide their menu is, because it would just flip to mobile if there's not room.
Yep.
That makes it harder on the admin side, because you can't reflect on the back what's doing on the front because we haven't rendered the menu. But it would at least.
I think on my vision for that on the admin side is that you get to choose how it's responsive. One of the options would be never hide any of my menu links ever. Let them wrap and I'll handle it. Or, show what you can show and then do like an ellipse or something. Or if you can't show them all, just make them all a hamburger. Those are the three methods I see, so that you have some form of admin control, but it'll also work in real world circumstances.
Is there any way to do like make it hide in core, and then when we add the menu styles API, those other two options would be the first two styles that go in?
What was that?
So I'm not sure. I've spent a lot of time on the responsive menu issues this week. You're probably like, what the hell are you talking about? So we have two issues. We have a bug that's like right now our menus aren't responsive at all. And then we have this bigger issue of like we need to add an API, which is the pull request that Doc Wilmot had been working on, where you've been having trouble getting it to save settings. And so I'm looking at the API going, this is way too crazy to do in the next 2 weeks, and I pushed that to the next version of Backdrop somewhere down the road. But we need to fix the bug now. And so what I was thinking is we could choose one of those three options that you were just talking about, put in now, make it the default, and have it be a checkbox. Then when we add the menu styles API, like the two more checkboxes would show up, or write radio buttons, or whatever we want to do, that would allow you to choose your behavior. And those would be the first two instances of how do we give people an option to choose how they want their menus to behave.
Yeah.
And that might be a great way to divide that.
I was thinking it'd be like a select. You get one of X many options, and maybe there's a cool kid way to like add your own.
I mean, maybe, but I think like there are problems that you can't solve in a select list. Like I want both a drop-down menu and I want it to be responsive.
Oh.
Right. So you've got to be able to check when you get a drop-down.
I was just thinking about the responsiveness. Sorry.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So there we also have I don't know, maybe those shouldn't be one issue either, but like we don't have any way to do a drop down out of the box, and that's how that started. And then it was like, now we don't have any way to do responsive. So I mushed them into one issue, where it's like put in a library that does responsive drop down menus out of the box, and then give people like ways to turn on or off. And I think the checkbox for drop down is just like whether you respect the menu setting for show children or not. Expanded, it's called expanded. And then because every drop-down menu core, every contrib drop-down menu just ignores that setting, and so it seems like that's all we need to do in core is just like, do we care about the setting or not? And then making it responsive, we need a setting for that, because if it's like a sidebar menu, you don't want that one turning into a hamburger. But if it's your main menu, you do. So we need to have some kind of like multiple ways people can choose how they want their menus to behave. Yep. And I think like having a solution like Doc Wilmot proposed, where there is a select list that allows you to like change your library, is totally valid, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't also provide these other settings. And maybe that means it's two options, like not just like what style do you want it to be, but like what behavior do you want it to be, and then what library do you use. And I don't know what names we put on those form elements, but it can't just be like, oh, I changed to slim menu and now all my drop downs are gone. Like.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, by default we could just do the hamburger thing. It's I think what most people expect, and it's easier to implement than the other options.
Yeah.
The other option.
Okay.
Cool.
So yeah, I made a stab at this, although now that we've talked about it, I'm not sure about any of it. But anyway, there's an issue 39 that I took a stab at working with what we had rather than changing the default config. That might be worth a look at. But
I saw it. I was going to pull it to my local and mess around with it.
okay. Yeah, but speaking of things that the header, which issue is it, Jen? Is that what
Okay, yeah.
Okay. 9. But speaking of adjusting core to cater to our new core theme, I have been doing going through all of the PRs you filed against core, Wes, or the ones that we needed some ideas for, and have been trying to make core accommodate a little bit better. So we moved OpenSans this week into the MISC directory and made it into a library. So you can say Drupal add library,
Nice.
or sorry, backdrop add library, and then you say system OpenSans, and then that will add the OpenSans fonts to whatever.
Nice. That's a lot. Yeah.
Yes. So there is a downside, though, that themes don't have the capability to add libraries from their .info file currently. So you just have to use preprocess page and then do backdrop add library.
Yep.
And you can check 7 to see how that's done, because 7 has to do that as well now.
Yep.
Let's see. I also merged. You made a PR to move responsive tabs out. That got moved. I think that has been merged also. So that's now part of responsive tabs.
I abstracted some of the functionality from being specific to responsive tabs because we can use it on responsive menus.
Yeah, I can't remember where that moved to. It's also becoming a library, though, I think.
Oh, cool.
And then the font detection, that just got moved directly into backdrop.js. So we can just do, backdrop.fontloaded, and then, yay, we can check if fonts are loaded now, because that's necessary for the responsive tabs. So the side effect of all of this, once it all gets merged, I think the responsive tabs hasn't been merged yet, but once that all happens, 7 won't have a JavaScript file anymore.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because 7 only had the responsive tabs, the font detection. I guess that's it. Responsive tabs and the font detection, and then those things have both been moved out, so there's nothing left. Yay, that'll be nice. Which is great because Basis needs possibly the same things. Also, responsive tabs for Basis is not nearly as important as it is for 7, but I know that you were hoping to make Basis an admin theme.
I already did that.
Oh, okay. Does it work with the responsive tabs JavaScript already? Oh.
Yep. Some of the changes I made in that pull request were to accommodate the style differences because the JavaScript wasn't expecting to have to calculate certain things. Like it wasn't looking for padding or whatever, border.
Okay.
So I just fixed that stuff in that pull request, and then it just works.
One thing that has me thinking for continuing working contrib, since we've now adjusted core, is that if we start modifying the contrib version, it's going to depend on the 1.x branch of Backdrop. It won't work with 1.4 anymore, which I'm actually almost entirely okay with. I mean, we are a little over 2 weeks, a little under 2 weeks away. So having a 2-week period in which Basis doesn't work in contrib prior to it being in 1.5 seems like a no problem.
Yeah. And the people that are generally using Basis can pull 1.x and right. So.
Yep. Yeah, but overall, since I didn't get to really express this in all of my individual criticisms, I actually really like it. The actual design and appearance of things, and the job of making a generic site look good, all of these things are accomplished. It's actually a lot simpler than I had expected. I was expecting crazy pants. It's how core themes, you look in template.php and they're all doing this whacked up stuff, right? But the template.php file is totally pristine. There's 6 functions in it, and that's it. So it's doing a great job of expressing some of the items that I pulled out of Jen's post. It
Yeah.
expresses a brand. It looks good even though there isn't any content on it, and it's a good tutorial. It's a good teaching theme. Like and as the entire point of the theme, it would be a good candidate for subtheming. So, yay!
God.
Yeah, yeah. Lots of really great things going on in there. So,
Thanks.
yay!
Shout out to Carwin for teaching me how to make Drupal themes without doing a ton of PHP work. Carwin Young of the Whole fame.
Yay! Okay. Well, let's keep moving. We've only got a couple minutes until our next meeting. So we already kind of talked about responsive navigation. Do you have anything to add on that, Jen?
No, I think we talked around in circles.
Speaking of talking around in circles, the front page layout is also a hairy issue, issue 1042, which you also took a stab at this week, Jen, right?
Yeah, so I'm not sure this is necessarily related to design because we don't have any designs for it. But there's definitely like this slippery slope thing. Where is it? I have it open. About like how we handle /node and then how we handle like RSS settings and how that's tied to taxonomy term as well as /node. And when we do replace the home page with the view, we need to add a new block that has the like, welcome to your site. You haven't added any content yet text, which was provided by /node. And so I was thinking about just making a block and throwing it on the home page and having it only be visible if there isn't any content. As soon as there is, it'll disappear. And then that way, if people don't want that thing on their homepage, they can remove it pretty easily by editing the layout. So we've got to do that, and then trying to figure out what else we're going to put on the default homepage layout. Originally, we talked about setting up an image block or an image slider, but that's getting a little hairy because how that thing should actually be architected is very different for any number of use cases, and in most cases, images are treated as content, not as configuration. So we have this issue of like we write a config file and we reference a file ID, but now you deploy that change and your file doesn't get deployed with it. So that gets a little messy. So I don't know exactly how to solve that problem. It seems like even if we did it as a background image, we'd have a problem with the file. Anywhere you give someone a UI to add a file, that file is content. At least the way that Backdrop handles files. So I'm kind of blocked on what to do about the image thing. Like I have a couple of ideas. Like there's a module in Drupal 7 called image block that just gives you a new block style that has an image upload field. It has its own database table where it keeps track of all of its stuff, and it's like that's definitely content. If we were to put that into Backdrop, the block style would become a new block that stores stuff in configuration. So now we've got this upgrade path that takes your content and turns it to configuration if you move from Drupal 7 to Backdrop, so that's a little weird. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it really screams like maybe we should wait until we have block entities in core and ship with a default block entity that's a homepage slide and a view that puts it on the homepage. Because I feel like that is the most widely adopted architectural pattern for this particular problem, although it is also the hardest possible one for us to get into core. It's definitely not going to happen in 2 weeks, but I would like to see that happen anyway, so maybe having a front page that is only as good as ours is today might be a motivating factor for getting that in for like 1.6. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that. We should ask in the other meeting today.
Yeah,
that's
I keep coming up with more and more ideas, which seem to be getting progressively more terrible. But
yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I've got 100 solutions and none of them are good, and very few of them can get done in 2 weeks.
I mean, here's something even more. Yeah, God, I don't know.
Don't even say it. Even say it.
Well, okay. Well, there is something theme related that since we have Wes here, I want to get his feedback on what he had envisioned for the way or how a theme would get background image into like the basis design files that we have a banner at the top, a hero that has like this blue tiley background thing going on. And there's different ways that we could approach handling that particular image, that it could be added by the theme like as a background on the default markup, or something crazy like if we shipped with a hero block that you could upload an image into, it could be part of the standard profile that it would just include that image, whether by path or upload it or whatever, actually basically start with a single file in your files database and reference that file from
well, the problem isn't how to get the file into the markup. The problem is how to deal with a file on disk. Because anything, whether it's a theme setting or a block setting, it's a config change, and you're going to be referencing content in config.
Well, I mean, that problem aside, I'm actually curious about how to deal with a theme that has a hero image and whether or not that is important or not. Because if we include it in the default profile, when you switch themes, that image obviously will stay there, and the new theme won't really have an opportunity to say, I like this image for my hero, like in order to be thematic or to match its screenshot or whatever, or maybe it just ships with a hero.ping that you need to manually specify when you change themes, that you would also upload the hero.ping if you wanted it to look like it's screenshot or something. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. So this is something that is like, we have to decide what it means to be a theme, right? Because in WordPress land, themes do have a lot of imagery associated with them, right? But what a theme is in WordPress is equivalent to like a distribution or an install profile in Backdrop, right? Where it contains a lot more than just what your site looks like. It contains content types, it contains views, it contains shopping cart solutions. I mean, the stuff that you can get in a theme in WordPress is really different. And the way that we have started off with Backdrop is we have removed a ton of stuff that the theme used to be responsible for in Drupal. So now it's less of a theme than Drupal used to have when Drupal was a theme, where all it is in Backdrop is a skin. And so if we now start saying, well, we want it to be more like WordPress because people understand that better, and we start taking like imagery stuff and put that back into the theme, it starts to get really confusing. You're like, well, is it more like WordPress or is it less like WordPress than Drupal was? I don't know.
Right.
And so my kind of gut on this is that we should stick to our guns and say you should be allowed to change your theme and your site shouldn't break. And that means that if you had added an image into a hero, that is content. And if you change your theme, it does not change with your theme. And if it's a background image and it's a setting and it's a configuration and you change your theme, it shouldn't change. That's just the way you've got it configured. And there could be like a UI option that's like we have right now with fave icon and logo. There's like use site default, right? Like we could have that same thing where it's like use default or upload your own. And if you choose upload your own, then that's not changing. If you choose use default, then it falls back to whatever the thing shipped with.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, that we would have something like that. Yeah.
My original thought was that would be a component and it would have an image field and whatever. That was my long-term goal. But as for how that image is being added, I made that image so that it's actually it's grayscale, and I add the color by using really cool CSS. So that if you updated the color of the theme, it would update the color of that background, so that you could keep that if you wanted, and still it would fit with your site. In order to do that, it has to be a background image. Which means either I'm doing inline styles with the PHP template, just to kind of make sure that is coming from the CMS, or that's just the default image in CSS, and if you don't have a content image in there, it'll fall back to that. and then that could be overridden just with styles. That was kind of where my head was for that.
Yeah. Huh, that's an interesting idea that if you just didn't upload an image, like it would be the default. Because then, assuming that we shipped with some kind of homepage hero or something, we just wouldn't upload an image to it at all. Like if it were a configuration block or whatever, it just wouldn't have an image. But you could upload one and it would replace whatever is the absence of an image.
Right.
I like that, actually. I mean, we still need to figure out how the hell the hero will be constructed, but I like the idea that if you don't upload a file, it just falls back to whatever default there is.
Yep. And
and that way that field would become optional too, which makes it so that there's less fields you need to fill out when I'm trying to throw up a hero, you know. You just you could stub it out more easily. Huh, I like that idea a lot. And then themes get the opportunity to be the default or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so question, how is this hero block thing something I can build for this homepage layout or putting it in?
You could make it a CTools content type kind of thing. But,
well, I mean, that's just a block in Backdrop, right?
Right.
So block settings would be use system default, which would be whatever your theme happens to provide, or does the hero provide the image?
Yeah, the setting would be there'd be an image field or a managed file field, and if you didn't upload anything into it, then the background image would be...
I think that's going to be really confusing because then people wouldn't be able to figure out why there was an image there at all. But I think if we had a radio button that was like use system default or provide my own, and you check provide my own and then an upload field appears, that people will at least understand, like, oh, if I want to provide my own, there's an option to do that.
Okay, yeah, from a UX standpoint, sure. But from the data storage standpoint, just if there wasn't an image, then it would just use the default. I mean, it would be the background, like you would have in CSS, the background image would be defined by the theme.
So am I taking the background file that's in Wes's theme now and putting it in this block? Like in my code for this block, do I include that file?
Now, in your CSS, the theme CSS, it just says hero background image equals this file. But in
so if you have 8 hero blocks, they'll all use the same image from whatever your theme happens to style. And if you don't use the theme that supports it, you get 8 empty boxes. Like, I feel like that's a really bad architectural decision.
If you haven't uploaded any images into any of them. Yeah, because, I mean, like, you could make a hero that just is text, right? The text and the link or whatever.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have...
Site.
Yeah, and if you...
So just don't use the word image. I'll call it hero. Don't use image. And then people can put whatever the heck they want in there, and there will be an option for adding an image or not, or your theme could add one on top or underneath, I suppose. But, okay. Let me try that.
Yes, so I didn't get to finish the thought that if you upload an image, it inlines the background, the background style, or sorry, the style attribute, and sets the background image inline, which overrides the theme. And therefore, like if you uploaded an image, the background image from the theme would never show. But if you didn't upload an image, the background image from the theme would just, CSS would cascade and it would use it. Yay.
Yeah. That's how I do my panels, content panes with image stuff too. But it's a total hack. I like this much better.
Yeah. From an implementation standpoint, it's like this is the best idea that we've had, that at least we could figure out this much of it makes sense, which is further than we've gotten any time recently. Yeah, we still don't know how to deal with the markup that goes within the block. Like, let's say you wanted to have a title and a link. Okay, title and a link is one thing, but what happens when you want a title and 2 links? It's like we start getting really
so
challenging.
I think that's fine. Title and 2 links, we can save that for block entities in core. I think for the features for this hero, it should be line of text, maybe 2 lines of text, heading, because the block has a heading, right? The block has a title, And then one line of whatever else. I mean, should we put in a rich text field? Let people do whatever the heck they want in there?
Sure. They might want a bulleted list or, I don't know.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, if we did add a rich text editor, then that would actually add the capability to do, like, the hero on backdropcms.org, for example. Like, we could actually implement that.
Want.
Yeah, as opposed to just hard coding a custom block. Yeah.
Okay, background image and a text area. We're talking about a block. It's just a normal block, and it has one extra field for image. And that image happens to go in the background, and that's it.
Yeah.
This is totally straightforward. Okay, what are we doing with the file ID reference? Saving in config.
Yeah, when
At default doesn't have any image.
I would actually be tempted. Yeah, the default won't have any image at all, so the standard profile doesn't need to deal with it. But I would actually be tempted not to store the file ID at all, but to store the file path.
It's 401.
Okay, sorry. Now yeah. So much for design and stupid developers taking over stupid meetings. Okay. All right. Well, let's. Sorry, everybody, that we're going down the rabbit hole there. We almost finished the agenda, but yeah, you can check us out on GitHub. We have a audience tag label on GitHub for all design-related issues. So let's end this meeting and start the next one. So thanks everybody for watching.
Great progress, everybody. Thank you.
All right. Bye.